Hello and welcome to a new episode of Laravel Core Adventures, where we take pieces of our favorite PHP framework and together figure out how they work in the background. This is level number 2 of the last Eloquent Temple of Doom. So let's dive right in. Level number 1 was meant to give you a little introduction to Eloquent and the parts involved. And we already learned a lot by exploring the all method. In this video today, we want to move on this path and take a look at another important Eloquent method. I'm talking about the famous find method, which you can see here. I have here another route where I return the user with the ID of 1. And when we hit this endpoint, we should see the user. So let's give it a try. And here we have user with the ID 1, which is John. So this is working. Perfect. And this simplicity is what I fell in love with Laravel the first time. As a beginner, the syntax is super easy to understand and remember, of course. We want to get a user and we want to find one with the ID of 1. That's perfect. It can't get more easier. But what's not so easy is to understand how this is working. And that's why I'm here for you again today. Again, we're going to start our investigations in the user model, where you will see that we don't find this method again. So let's go into the user model. So when I look at the methods here, you can see that we don't have a find method. But again, we're extending this authenticatable class here. And when we take a look at that, we see that we're also extending the base model. So that's also what we've done before. But now different from the all method, also inside our base model, we don't have a method called find. Okay, so how is this working now? This is now similar to facades, if you can remember that, because we have here a magic method called call static. Here we have it. So we've been calling a static method called find. So let's recap here. This is our static find method that we have called. And this is why now this call static method is being triggered, which gets all the calls to a static method that does not exist. And this is our case. And in here, we are now creating a new instance, which is an instance of the user model in our case. And now we try to run the method. In our case, it's the find method again, but this time it's not a static method. But as you've seen, we also don't have a non-static find method here. Okay, this is why another method gets called, and this time it's the magic call method. And this is similar to the call static method, but it's for calls that are not static and they are for methods that are not defined. Okay, in here we're first checking if it's about incrementing or decrementing, which is not the case for us. So this is why we go to this second line here. And here we are now forwarding this call to a new instance of the Eloquent Builder. Because in the last video, we have already learned that running the new query method gets us back a new Eloquent Builder object. And as the second and third parameter, we are providing the method name, which is find, and parameters, we are passing the 1 because we want the ID of 1. And when we now take a look at the Eloquent Builder, which we have here, here you can see I already have here the find method. As you probably already know, the first parameter we are providing here is the ID, which we have done. And the second is an optional parameter where we could define columns. Not sure if you've seen that, but let's try it out. So let's say we just want the email. Let's try that. And yeah, this is also working. So I didn't know about that because I didn't have a use case yet, but yeah, I already learned something by checking the Laravel core code out as well. So that's pretty cool. And then we're checking if the ID we're passing is an array, or if it's an instance of an arrayable. And now this is different because we can also pass multiple IDs to the find method, and then we would run a different method called find many. Okay, let's give this a try as well. So let's say we want to get the first and the second user with the ID of 1 and 2. And now we get both again. So as you can see, we can also provide here an array, and Laravel is smart enough to know, okay, then we need to call the find many method. Okay, but in our case, we don't have an array, so this is why we get to this line here, where we're going to set our constraint for the key. So this means we're going to say that we want to get a user where the ID is the ID that we have provided. And after setting this constraint, we're going to run the first method. The third method is now being part of a trait, which is called build queries. And as you can see, I'm now inside database concerns, and one of them is this builds queries class. And inside here we have this first method, which we can use inside our Eloquent Builder. And now this first method does a bunch of things. It basically translates to 3 different method calls. So first we say that we only want to get one result back because we just want the first one. So that's like a limit in SQL. Then we are going to execute this query. We've seen that in the last video already with specific columns. And then we're calling another first method on this. But if you remember correctly, the get method gets us back a collection class. So now this first method is being a method on the collection class. And this method just returns the first item of the collection. So we have already defined that we just want to query this one element with this limit here, but still we get a Laravel collection object back, which we always get from the get method of the Eloquent Builder. So we need this additional first method to get our user model instance from the collection. And that's what's happening here. If you can see, we are now here getting back the object, and it's not an array anymore, so it's not a collection. And this is already how the find method works and why we can run this find method on our user model. Okay, but maybe this was a little bit much information, so let's do a little recap. So inside our user, we don't have this find method. Then we are going to the Eloquent base model. Inside there, we also don't have a find method. That's why the call static method is being called. Here we have it, where we try to run the same method, find method, on the model again, but also this doesn't exist, so why the magic method call is being triggered. And in there we are now forwarding this call to the Eloquent Builder. So we're saying, okay, if this find method does not exist here, then maybe it's defined on the Eloquent Builder. And inside our Eloquent Builder, which we have here, we now have finally this find method that we want to call, and this is where we get back our Eloquent instance. And this is how one of Laravel's most popular methods work. In the next videos, we are going to dive into Eloquent where methods and check out how they work. So stay tuned and see you.